The Literary Society of the University of Massachusetts presents New England Anthology, the expression in poetry of the American concept of the free man by writers who make use of the New England scene, background, or heritage. This program, the third in our series, will present Mr. Wallace Stevens.
Mr. Stevens' first book, Harmonium, was published in 1923, but the poems he has selected to read this evening are drawn from later volumes. Over the years, at fairly regular intervals, he has published his polished and artful poems. Until now, the precision as well as the amount of his verse assure us that we have the productions of a major poet. Mr. Stevens has concerned himself with the margin between factual reality, the world of things as they are, and imaginative reality. And in the second only is man able to create, preserve, and enlarge his freedom. Would it be fair to say, Mr. Stevens, that you have been particularly concerned with this imaginative freedom rather than with political freedom?
Yes. There is a life apart from politics. It is this life that the youth, as virile poet, lives in a kind of radiant and productive atmosphere. It is the life of that atmosphere. There, the philosopher is an alien. The pleasure that the poet has there is a pleasure of agreement with the radiant and productive world in which he lives. It is an agreement that Mallarmé found in the sound of La Vierge, La Vivace, et la Belle aujourd'hui, and that Hopkins found in the color of the purple thunder, sea beach, plumage, purple of thunder, the indirect purpose, or perhaps it would be better to say, inverted effect of soliloquies in hell and of most celestial poems, and in a general sense, of all music played on the terraces of the audiences of the moon, seems to be to produce an agreement with reality. It is the mundo of the imagination, in which the imaginative man delights, and not the gaunt world of the reason. The pleasure is the pleasure of powers that create a truth that cannot be arrived at by the reason alone, a truth that the poet recognizes by sensation. The morality of the poet's radiant and productive atmosphere is the morality of the right sensation. Let me read a poem from Transport to Summer to illustrate what I've just said. A Pastoral Nun. Finally, in the last year of her age, having attained a present blessedness, she said, "Poetry and apotheosis are one." This is the illustration that she used. If I live according to this law, I live in an immense activity in which everything becomes morning, summer, the hero, the enraptured woman, the sequestered night, the man that suffered lying there at ease, without his envious pain in body, in mind, the favorable transformations of the wind, as of a general being or human universe. There was another illustration in which the two things compared their tight resemblances. Each matters only in that which it conceives. Another poem, somewhat related to this theory of poetry, is The Idea of Order at Key West. She sang beyond the genius of the sea. The water never formed to mind or voice, like a body, holy body, fluttering its empty sleeves, and yet its mimic motion made constant cry, caused constantly a cry that was not ours, although we understood, inhuman, of the veritable ocean. The sea was not a mask, no more was she. The song and water were not medleyed sound, even if what she sang was what she heard, since what she sang was uttered word by word. It may be that in all her phrases stirred the grinding water and the gasping wind, but it was she, and not the sea, we heard. For she was the maker of the song she sang. The ever-hooded, tragic-gestured sea was merely a place by which she walked to sing. Whose spirit is this, we said, because we knew it was the spirit that we sought, and knew that we should ask this often as she sang. If it was only the dark voice of the sea that rose, or even colored by many waves, if it was only the outer voice of sky and cloud, of the sunken coral water-walled, however clear, it would have been deep air, the heaving speech of air, a summer sound repeated in a summer without end and sound alone. But it was more than that, more even than her voice and ours. Among the meaningless plungings of water and wind, theatrical distances, bronze shadows heaped on high horizons, mountainous atmospheres of sky and sea. It was her voice that made the sky acutest at its vanishing. She measured to the hour its solitude. She was the single artificer of the world in which she sang. And when she sang, the sea, whatever self it had, became the self that was her song, for she was the maker. Then we, as we beheld her striding there alone, knew that there never was a world for her except the one she sang. And singing made. Ramon Fernandez, tell me, if you know, why, when the singing ended and we turned toward the town, tell why the glassy lights, the lights in the fishing boats at anchor there, as the night descended, tilting in the air, mastered the night and portioned out the sea, fixing emblazoned zones and fiery poles, arranging, deepening, enchanting night. Oh, blessed rage for order, pale Ramon, the maker's rage to order words of the sea. Words of the fragrant portals, dimly starred, and of ourselves and of our origins, in ghostlier demarcations, keener sounds. Next, I shall read Credences of Summer. 1. Now, in midsummer come, and all fools slaughtered, and spring's infuriations over, and a long way to the first autumnal inhalations. Young broods are in the grass. The roses are heavy with a weight of fragrance, and the mind lays by its trouble. Now the mind lays by its trouble and considers. The fidgets of remembrance come to this. This is the last day of a certain year, beyond which there is nothing left of time. It comes to this and imagination's life. There is nothing more inscribed, nor thought, nor felt, and this must comfort the heart's core against its false disasters. These fathers standing round, these mothers touching, speaking, being near, these lovers waiting in the soft, dry grass. 2. Postpone the anatomy of summer as the physical pine, the metaphysical pine. Let's see the very thing and nothing else. Let's see it with the hottest fire of sight. Burn everything not part of it to ash. Trace the gold sun about the whitened sky without evasion by a single metaphor. Look at it in its essential barrenness and say this is the center that I seek. Fix it in an eternal foliage and fill the foliage with arrested peace, joy of such permanence, right ignorance of change still possible, exiled desire for what is not. This is the barrenness of the fertile thing that can attain no more. 3. It is the natural tower of all the world, the point of survey, green's green apogee, but a tower more precious than the view beyond, a point of survey squatting like a throne, axis of everything, green's apogee and happiest folkland, mostly marriage hymns. It is the mountain on which the tower stands. It is the final mountain. Here the sun, sleepless, inhales his proper air and rests. This is the refuge that the end creates. It is the old man standing on the tower who reads no book. His ruddy ancientness absorbs the ruddy summer and is appeased by an understanding that fulfills his age, by a feeling capable of nothing more. 4. One of the limits of reality presents itself in Ole, when the hay, baked through long days, is piled in mows. It is a land too ripe for enigmas, too serene. There the distant eye fails the clairvoyant. And the secondary senses of the ear swarm not with secondary sounds, but choirs, not evocations, but last choirs, last sounds, with nothing else compounded, carried full, pure rhetoric of a language without words. Things stop in that direction. And since they stop, the direction stops. And we accept what is as good. The utmost must be good, and is our fortune, and honey hived in the trees, and mingling of colors at a festival. 5. One day enriches a year. One woman makes the rest look down. One man becomes a race, lofty like him perpetual. Or do the other days enrich the one? And is the queen humble as she seems to be, the charitable majesty of her whole kin, the bristling soldier weather-foxed, who looms in the sunshine as a filial form, and one of the land's children, easily born, its flesh, not fustian. The more than casual blue contains the year and other years, and hymns, and people without souvenir. The day enriches the year, not as embellishment. Stripped of remembrance, it displays its strength, the youth, the vital sun, the heroic power. 6. The rock cannot be broken. It is the truth. It rises from land and sea and covers them. It is a mountain halfway green, and then the other immeasurable half, such rock as placid air becomes. But it is not a hermit's truth, nor symbol in hermitage. It is the visible rock, the audible, the brilliant mercy of a sure repose on this present ground, the vividest repose, things certain, sustaining us in certainty. It is the rock of summer, the extreme, a mountain luminous halfway in bloom, and then halfway in the extremest light of sapphires flashing from the central sky, as if 12 princes sat before a king. 7. Far in the woods they sang their unreal songs, secure. It was difficult to sing in face of the object. The singers had to avert themselves, or else avert the object. Deep in the woods, they sang of summer in the common fields. They sang, desiring an object that was near, in face of which desire no longer moved, nor made of itself that which it could not find. 3 times the consented self takes hold. 3 times the thrice consented self, having possessed the object, grips it in savage scrutiny, once to make captive, once to subjugate or yield to subjugation. wants to proclaim the meaning of the capture, this hard prize, fully made, fully apparent, fully found. The trumpet of morning blows in the clouds and through the sky. It is the visible announced. It is the more than visible, the more than sharp, illustrious seen. The trumpet cries, this is the successor of the invisible. This is its substitute in stratagems of the spirit. This in sight and memory must take its place, as what is possible replaces what is not. The resounding cry is like 10,000 tumblers tumbling down to share the day. The trumpet supposes that a mind exists, aware of division, aware of its cry as clarion, its diction's way, as that of a personage in a multitude, man's mind grown venerable in the unreal. 9. Fly low, cock-bright, and stop on a beanpole. Let your brown breast redden while you wait for warmth. With one eye, watch the willow motionless. The gardener's cat is dead, the gardener gone, and last year's garden grows salacious weeds. A complex of emotions falls apart in an abandoned spot. Soft, civil bird, the decay that you regard, of the arranged and of the spirit of the arranged, douceur, tristesse, the fund of life and death, suave bush and polished beast, this complex falls apart, and on your beanpole, it may be, you detect another complex of other emotions, not so soft, so civil, and you make a sound which is not part of the listener's own sense. 10. The personae of summer play the characters of an inhuman author who meditates with the gold bugs in blue meadows late at night. He does not hear his characters talk. He sees them mottled in the moodiest costumes of blue and yellow, sky and sun, belted and knotted, sashed and seamed, half pails of red, half pails of green, appropriate habit for the huge decorum, the manner of the time, part of the mottled mood of summer's whole, in which the characters speak because they want to speak. The fat, the roseate characters, free for a moment from malice and sudden cry, completed in a completed scene, speaking their parts as in a youthful happiness.
Mr. Stevens, you've referred to the limits of reality. You seem to limit your sense of reality to rocks, stones, trees, and so forth. Is that what you intend?
No, not at all. The theory of poetry, that is to say, the total of the theories of poetry, often seems to become, in time, a mystical theology, or more simply, a mystique. The reason for this must by now be clear. The reason is the same reason why the pictures in a museum of modern art often seem to become in time a mystical aesthetic, a prodigious search of appearance, as if to find a way of saying and of establishing that all things, whether below or above appearance, are one, and that it is only through reality, in which they are reflected, or it may be joined together, that we can reach them. Under such stress, reality changes from substance to subtlety, a subtlety in which it was natural for Cézanne to say, I see planes bestriding each other, and sometimes straight lines seem to me to fall. It was from the point of view of another subtlety that Clay could write. But he is one chosen that today comes near to the sacred places where original law fosters all evolution. And what artist would not establish himself there, where the organic center of all movement in time and space, which he calls the mind or heart of creation, determines every function. This reality is also the momentous world of poetry. Its instantaneities are the familiar intelligence of poets, although it has been the intelligence of another ambience. Modern reality is a reality of decreation, in which our revelations are not the revelations of belief, but the precious portents of our own powers. The greatest truth we could hope to discover, in whatever field we discovered it, is that man's truth is the final resolution of everything. Let me conclude with a short poem entitled The Poem That Took the Place of a Mountain. There it was, word for word, the poem that took the place of a mountain. He breathed its oxygen, even when the book lay turned in the dust of his table. It reminded him how he had needed a place to go to in his own direction, how he had recomposed the pines, shifted the rocks, and picked his way among clouds for the outlook that would be right, where he would be complete in an unexplained completion, the exact rock where his inexactnesses would discover at last the view towards which they had edged, where he could lie and gazing down at the sea, recognize his unique and solitary home. One more. I find that I have time for one more poem, Vacancy in the Park, March. Someone has walked across the snow, someone looking for he knows not what. It is like a boat that has pulled away from the shore at night and disappeared. It is like a guitar left on a table by a woman who's forgotten it. It is like the feeding of a man come back to see a certain house. The four winds blow through the rustic arbor under its mattresses of vines.
This program was presented by the Literary Society of the University of Massachusetts. It was produced for the National Association of Educational Broadcasters under a grant from the Educational Television and Radio Center. This is the third in a series of programs entitled New England Anthology, the expression in poetry of the American concept that a free man by writers who make use of the New England scene, background, or heritage. Project supervisor was Robert Tucker. Production director was Anthony Zaitz. The script was written by Leland Varley and Richard Haven. Editorial assistants were Leon Barron, David Clark, and Robert Tucker. Technical director was W. Worcester Smith, assisted by William Alford. Interviewer on this program was Richard Haven. This program was produced on the campus of the University of Massachusetts in Amherst.